Robertson.
Garth Robertson. Welcome to the Almost Above Average podcast, man.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. I was really excited to have you because you and I met, we went, a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, Tim, he has a gym and he did an event to promote his business, and he had you do a, what is it? Sound healing?
Sound ceremony is what I call it.
Sound ceremony. So that was completely new experience for me. I didn't know what to expect, and I was a little standoffish at first, like a sound healing, like what the hell is that? Then we get in, it was kind of, I loved your setup. I loved all the instruments and sounds that you had. That was very appealing to me. But that experience was really cool, man. That was a really cool experience for me. So I appreciate that experience. And I want to know where that came from. Like, where does that love come from? But before we get into the sound healing stuff, can you tell us where you grew up and what kind of influences led you into, you're a musician as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been a musician for a lot longer than a sound healer. So.
Oh, a sound healer. Gotcha.
Yeah.
When did you start with music? So where'd you come from?
I was born in Florida back in '81, which is like right in the center of the state, a little north of Orlando, Florida. So I spent a lot of my time and growing up at the beach, a lot of time at Disneyland, or Disney World, I guess it's called down there.
Yep.
I'm an only child, had a lot of support growing up with in all of my endeavors. Spent a lot of my young years as actually a go-kart driver and didn't do any music. I actually didn't do music until, or even begin to play the guitar or have any musical influences in my life. I think music was something we did in the car and we had like on during dinner and things like that. Until around the 8th grade, which I guess I was around, 13 or 14, we moved up to North Carolina. And so I came from Orlando, Florida, a suburb of Orlando, Florida, into like Roxborough, North Carolina, where it is which is probably maybe 40 minutes north of Durham, up on 15501.
Never been there.
And so it was a culture shock because I was just surrounded now by tobacco fields and, the forest and just what I was not surrounded by in Florida. Didn't have a lot of friends. And that actually, one day I was watching TV with my parents and a commercial came on and there was this sound in the background that was like, I know now was an electric guitar like being picked out like string by string. And I asked him, I was like, what is that sound? And my dad was like, I think that's an electric guitar. And I was like, wow, and I seemed really interested. So my grandpa, my mom's dad, played a lot of country, like in a lot of country bands and played guitar. And they reached out to him and they were like, we're thinking about getting a guitar for Garth. He seems interested. And grandpa sent me his first guitar actually that he still had from way back in the day from like a Sears catalog. I mean, it is quite the instrument. Not in a good way, but
do you still play it?
I don't play it, but I do have it.
Okay.
I take it out and look at it every once in a while and just kind of remember, he's passed on now, and it's just like a cool kind of way to remember my roots in that way. And then because of the, just having moved to a new school and I have a lot of friends, I just dove completely into the guitar, played it for, I don't know, before I got up and went to school. As soon as I got home from school, I'd stop for homework and dinner and then immediately start playing again until I had to go to sleep. I'd lay in bed on my back playing guitar and go to sleep. It really became like my best friend.
That sounds like an obsession.
Yeah, somewhat of an obsession, a pretty healthy addiction.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then it kind of went from there with, slowly getting better guitars and getting in bands and all of that. So I'll
share a story with you about your guitar story. Reminded me of my guitar story where when I was probably 15 or 16 when I just started dabbling into guitar, and I was in Nevada at the time, and we had to fly back to Vermont because my uncle had passed away. And during all of that, he was a musician, so he had a lot of music stuff back, and I was the only one that was kind of trying to play music at the time. So the family gave it to me, to honor my uncle, and I still play it every night, about 4 times a week on stage. So I love that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I call it, his name was Uncle Pony, so I called the guitar Pony.
Oh. And what kind of guitar was it, did you say?
It's it's a Strat, Fender Strat. Mexican Stratocaster.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, sorry to get derailed. So you're in Roxborough. You started playing in high school or middle school?
Yeah, it was in between 8th grade. I got it in 8th grade, but I wouldn't, and then I played it all through high school. But I feel like middle school is technically where I started.
Yeah. Was there
Quite a
any
bit, yeah.
other than that guitar? Was there any other influences from school that brought you into the music world? Did you play in band?
No, no, I was actually never part of any organized classes around school. I was kind of big into art. I did like a lot of like art, but it wasn't. I was never any good at it. I just kind of liked drawing and things like that.
Yeah.
And so when I found music, I felt like that was kind of my way into the arts, so to speak, and a way to be creative and like an outlet that, all the teenage angst and whatnot.
Hmm.
Listening to Nirvana and like heavy, Metallica, things like that back then. My
Yeah.
first ever concert was Metallica, actually.
Hell yeah, it
Uh,
was.
yeah.
We're the same age. I kind of
Okay.
I can identify with a lot of your story. Like
Nice, nice.
I wasn't an artist. Like, but in high school, I've tried to be a tagger, a graffiti artist, but
Oh
my
yeah, yeah,
my graffiti was very, very bad. So like you, like I was kind of good at music, so I just went with that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, man, right on. So now, so you're playing music? You play like 100 instruments when I saw you. So how
Right,
did you
right.
jump from the guitar to an African flute made out of a bladder of a? You had some crazy cool
um,
instruments that day.
Well, it was actually guitar for a long time, and then actually I've been. This is my 30-year anniversary of playing guitar this year, so it was guitar mostly. I learned how to play the djembe drum, like the drum circles. I went to a lot of parties where drum circles were happening around a fire. I thought that was really cool, so I got a drum and learned some couple like West African rhythms, some different. It's really cool. I don't know if you've ever like explored that, but it's like they'll play all these different rhythms, and they're all so different if you just listen to them by themselves. But then when you play them together all at the same time, they have this crazy like syncopated, but the way they lock in is like really really cool. And so I started exploring that a little bit, but not a lot. It was just like a little hobby I did when with friends around a fire when we'd get together sometimes.
Yeah.
Up until 2015, 2016, where I started getting more into the sound healing stuff, and which I don't even like to really call it that. To me, which we can get into my ideas around all of that, my theory around it. But I don't refer to myself. That's why I said sound healer,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah. I saw
it's
the
like
quotes.
it's like I say it like that because people know what it is. But if I go like sound practitioner, which is what I prefer, people are like, "Oh, you practice sound, like so you're a musician." It's like, no, I mean, so I'm trying to
Kinda.
use, yeah, yeah. It's like, but.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Tomato,
and
tomato.
up until that happened until I was mostly those two instruments, and then I would play like the bass guitar and play around on like a drum kit. I was in a lot of bands. We traveled up and down the East Coast, like heavy metal, 7-string guitars, like real heavy.
Nice.
Yeah, lots of
Drop C
yelling,
tuning. Yeah.
lots of. I mean, drop A when it was on the
I don't even know what
7-string
that
guitar.
is.
It was like, yeah, it's kind of like it's a drop D shapes, but
Mm.
you have an extra big a big B string at the top of the guitar, so it's just even heavier.
Oh,
Bands like
evil.
Korn and things like that were using it. I look back at those days like, wow, I can't believe it, but all of our story brings us to where we are. So I'm
Right.
grateful for all of it.
Right. So you're
Um,
playing corn type music in high school, or you're
yeah,
traveling around the East Coast.
heavy in a band with a smelly van with 4 other smelly guys
The dream,
traveling up
dude.
and
It's the
down
dream.
playing. Yeah, yeah, playing, our original music in bars where nobody cared, like
Yeah.
making enough money to have food for the next day and a half as we traveled to the next small bar that nobody cared,
Yeah.
just kind of. But I
Maybe
was
get
in
a
that.
meal, maybe get some gas money.
That's it.
That's
That's
it.
it. When we got home, it was kind of like not a whole lot to show for it except experiences and a lot of awful stories.
Yeah. Maybe we do another episode about all those awful stories.
We could do 2 or 3.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah, yeah.
How long were you guys playing? Were you just in one band or just several?
Well, I mostly one band was from 2001 or 2000. Actually, maybe it was a little before that until like 2010, and then and then I got in a jazz band with a female singer
That's a
and a
weird
bass
jump.
player. It was a weird jump. But she was just an incredible songwriter, and all her songs she wrote on the ukulele. And
Okay.
so she's passed now, rest her soul. But she kind of like changed me over and was like, "Oh, you could do this thing." And so I started singing more, singing harmonies more, getting into like that kind of thing, singing softer and playing in these jazz standards. And the money was a lot better
Yeah.
because we were playing now these bars where people actually wanted to hear us and would
Right.
give big tips, and only three people to split the money. So it was that was a little, and we did that for maybe 4 years,
Mm.
up until I think around 2014, 2015, and that's when I started to find the sound practitioner part
Okay.
of my life. Yeah.
That's you started that your inner sound practitioner
Yeah,
started
yeah,
to come out.
that's when, yeah.
Did that?
Once, and that's where I took I've been working with a lot of plant medicine in Peru, and that's kind of
That's what I was
where
about to ask you about. Like, tell me about Peru.
yeah. When back in 2015, it was my first time down to the jungle, and a lot of people have heard the word ayahuasca now. It's kind of like a trendy thing, but back then it really wasn't so much. And the process I was going down there for, that particular plant, well, it's a mixture of two plants, but that was part of the process, but that wasn't the most important part. It was actually all the other active plants that are down there that all of the indigenous cultures consider teaching plants,
Hmm.
meaning that when you drink them, it's kind of like this tea I have here is just like a Tulsi tea. There's not a whole lot of effect. It kind of tastes like you're drinking plant water, and then when you get done, you don't really it's no like psychedelic effect or anything. But a lot of them were like big, giant, 150, 200-foot tall trees, like some of the largest in the jungle. The indigenous cultures down there believe that all of these trees, everything has a spirit, of course. And then beyond that, the spirit of certain trees and certain plants has an affinity for teaching human beings different lessons, different ways to live your life, different ways to increase, ways to clean your body. A lot of times, which is done traditionally down in that part of the world as a purge.
Hmm.
And so it's just like getting into that. And I was with ayahuasca, and I was sitting in a ceremony one night, and it was a particularly strong one, and I had like kind of just closed my eyes, and I was just surrendering to it. It was pretty challenging as they can be. And I remember I kind of like opened my eyes and looked around, and in front of me there were some singing bowls, and I like behind me there was a gong, and I didn't own any of these at the time. It was just like I was just like, and I asked out in that moment to whatever it is we're speaking to. Is it our higher selves? Is it God? Is it the plant spirits?
Right.
I don't know,
I don't know.
but we're speaking to something
Greater than us.
deeper, something and beyond, right?
Yeah.
And I said, what is this? I really felt like it was important what I was seeing, and it was very clear. It was like, this is what you're gonna do, and I was like, okay, what is it?
Yeah.
And it was like,
Okay. Like
it's
I hear
almost like,
you.
yeah, and it was almost like there was a giggle, and it was kind of like, it doesn't matter, just start doing it. And I
Okay.
was like, okay. And so I got home from that. These are like 2 week stretches in the jungle, like 10 days with a couple of days of traveling on either end, and you're
Is the
completely isolated.
ayahuasca thing last that long? Like
No, no,
the
well,
effects?
no, no, no. So the effects are maybe like 4 or 5 hours, but you
Okay.
have like multiple ceremonies within that 10-day period. But you're drinking that tea I was telling you about of like the non-psychedelic plants,
Hmm.
that you're kind of like prescribed by the person that's running the experience. You're like prescribed depending on your intentions, or if you're trying to heal anything in your body, or what's going on with you mentally or physically. They have like a plant for that, and like we have an app for that, right? And
Yeah.
it's like in the jungle, these indigenous cultures, they have a plant for that, or group of plants.
Hmm.
And so it was, so you're drinking that every day, and then there's like ayahuasca ceremonies sprinkled in there throughout, just to deepen the effect of the plant that you're drinking, or the plant that you were prescribed.
Okay.
So it's quite the process. So when I got home from that, um, I was my birthday, close to my birthday, and my now wife, then a girlfriend, bought me one singing bowl, a really big one from a store in Raleigh, actually, that doesn't exist anymore. So I was just kind of playing that, and then I went on eBay and I found this gong that someone was like a used gong, and it was at auction, so I just bid on it. And I forgot about it. I bid $1 over what they were asking, and then I forgot about it. And then a week
It
later, it's
shows
like,
up.
congratulations, you
Yeah.
have a gong. And I was like, okay, and so
This is all a sign. I guess I'm doing this, right?
I guess what's happening, right?
Yep.
So it's like, and it really kind of lined up like that. I had over the course of my doing this, a lot of the instruments that I have been gifted to me by different people.
Okay.
Like the entire set of metal bowls that I use, pretty much, except for that one and maybe one other one that I bought on my own, were gifted to me. Just people being like, here, I don't think I need these anymore. You can have them. The didgeridoo I use was a gift. The
Mm.
flute was a gift. You know. The chimes were a gift. It just kind of feels like, and then with even within that, like some of the, like I have a set of bowls, the bowls that were a gift, all of them are tuned perfectly except for this one that's in like a, instead of being an E note, it's an E flat. And but my the flute that was gifted to me, without just here's this flute, is also an E
Also,
flat.
oh, there we go.
And the didgeridoo that was gifted to me is also the fundamental is E flat. So it's like I was just like, oh, it all started like coming together in this way where I was like, wow, okay, I think this is meant to be. And so I'll pursue it.
Mhm.
And I began to invite people to my house, friends that could just come for free. I'm going to do this thing. I wasn't comfortable with calling it sound healing, but I'm going to do this experience, and just, it's free. And just tell me what you think,
Was it
give me
great
some
for you?
feedback. Yeah. Yeah. What do you think? Would you come back? What did you like? What did you not like? And I did that for a year and a half, where I was just kind of like, just let me know what you think. Wasn't, I was making money as a musician playing like gigs and giving lessons and things like that. So I was just like, I'm just doing this on the weekends and just seeing what's coming of it. And then after, a while of doing it and really honing my craft and getting some more instruments, having a lot of, you asked, how did you play all these instruments? It's like during the day when you're a musician, you're working at night. So during the day, I had time to,
Hmm.
do stuff around the house, make sure the lawn was mowed, all these things. Also, I could dedicate an hour to an hour and a half of serious inquiry with these different instruments. I got a hand pan.
Hmm.
I got, just a bunch of different instruments that I saw other people doing this work had,
Yeah.
and so I would just get it, and then I would just sit with it and play. And it began there, and then people started insisting that they give me a donation before they left. They were started getting something out of it, and finding that the needle moved while they were with me in the experience, and they were able to release, or they were able to like accept or forgive or come to terms. And I was always kind of holding it in the space of, the way that I was learning from my teachers in Peru, of like how to hold the space, hold the container. But it was also just happened to be nice music that was happening during it, instead of like some intense psychedelic.
Right.
And so more people could come. It felt a little more accessible to people, not so scary. And
Hmm.
that's kind of like I was carrying that energy out into the world on the wings of like music and on the wings of sound and vibration. And I feel like that was a really powerful kind of a way to start the practice. Yeah,
Was that the biggest experience, life-changing experience going to Peru and learning from these indigenous people? Was it just indigenous
absolutely.
people?
So yeah, it is some indigenous people, but it's also mestizo, which is like a mixture of indigenous jungle people, and then like people with Spanish lineage, basically from
Hmm.
the colonizers that came.
Conquer.
Yeah, and conquered, exactly. And so, but they all kind of have their own ways with the medicine. And yeah, I would say definitely life changing. And not for everybody, but as anybody that's done an intense self inquiry through the process of psychedelics kind of knows that it can be paradigm shifting. It can be, there can be a lot of release and acceptance and forgiveness and all of these things that help us be a little more whole,
Yeah.
as we deal with our own stuff. So for me, it was definitely what it was helping me with. I was definitely increased my ability to be a decent person, a loving person, an understanding person. And I'm still learning these lessons today,
Yeah.
but I would definitely say it was a catalyst on the start of this path for sure.
Nice. I think doing psychedelics as a child, when I did them, I did a lot of acid in high school and mushrooms too, but
Me
I
too.
I couldn't
Me
really
too. Yeah.
respect it. Like it was to get high at that time. But now that I'm a
Of course.
an adult, it's such a different experience, like why I would take it. Like I do want a spiritual experience. I do want to solve some problems, using those
Mm-hmm.
if I can. But
Yeah.
yeah.
No guarantees, but
No.
our intention going into it
No, and I'm
so
not
much.
promoting drug use on this podcast. I promise you. I wouldn't
Me
consider
neither. Me
that.
neither.
But
Mhm.
tell me about the science of the spirit of sound.
So over the course of I actually did over the course of my journey. Maybe it was a little. It was. I think it was during the pandemic. I think it was actually 2020. I was contacted by Blue Cross Blue Shield to
Mm,
actually, because they were interested in maybe starting to cover some sound healing, and a friend of mine worked there and was kind of like, oh, you should talk to my friend who does this, because maybe they were considering it being like an alternative, therapy for people.
I just saw a million
Because
business
there are,
opportunities for you with that, like going into
yeah,
hospitals,
and
going into uh critical care places. Like, dude, you can make a killing. Anyway, sorry.
yeah. Yeah, and I do, where we can, there are a lot of people that do like music and like retirement places,
Right.
and continuing care, palliative care is a big one. And there's kind of like a music therapy degree that you can have, which I do not
Uh-huh.
have. Like when we talked about certification before, it's kind of like what I'm doing right now is the Wild West. But I was contacted by Blue Cross Blue Shield, and so I had a meeting with them. I actually did a Zoom call into their conference room, talking about the science of sound, and talking about like what it could be done. And when I did the research, there wasn't a lot of like double blind controlled studies on what it is. It was a lot of like, here, lay down, listen to this sound bath, get up, self report, what you're feeling afterwards. There wasn't a lot of like in depth, controlled, double blind kind of studies going on,
Right.
which, Blue Cross Blue Shield, that's what they kind of need to
Yeah.
justify what they would need to spend
Paint.
if people
Yeah.
started doing. Yeah, if people started going to sound baths for,
A broken
and
ankle.
charging insurance. Yeah,
Yeah.
like it. So
My
they
heart's
were,
broken. I got to go get a sound bath.
exactly, and they were being a little, they were being very nice and open and lovely.
Mhm.
And it seemed, but I could just tell as it was going, because I just didn't really have the science to back up what I was experiencing and what I've seen happen for people over and over and over again, and all the sound ceremonies
That's
that I do.
anecdotal proof. Anecdotal, right?
Yeah, but they can't. It's like they can't
Yeah,
hang
it's
their hat
unacceptable.
on it. It's like when their investors are going to go like, "You're going to do what?" You know what I
Right.
mean? And it's like, "Oh
Right.
yeah," and so like it's and it's such a corporate structure, and I was just hoping and hoping, but I've seen some of the most amazing things, and some of the different studies that I found did show promise, but it was never like definitive proof that like what it was, like it was never like, well, we're always trying to, I say we as like almost like a species, we're always trying to like distill it down into like, it's almost like taking sound healing and turning it into a pill. Like, okay, if your neck hurts, you can listen to this frequency for
Right.
25 minutes. And that's just not how it works. It's a lot more like how the plants work. I mean, because if you think about it, when people would go into the jungle, they'd hear about people curing cancer with certain trees. And
Right.
they'd go, oh, and they'd go and they'd get this tree, and they'd analyze it, and they'd find out it had this one specific molecule. So they'd isolate that molecule, and they'd try to like put that in cancer patients, and nothing would happen.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work. They cannot reproduce what's reproduced in the jungle. And it's because of a thing called the entourage effect, which is it takes all of the molecules in that tree working in this synergistic way
To get
to
that
actually
effect.
bring it. Right, to get that effect.
Yep.
I feel like science, the sound of science works a lot the same, and that you can't be distilled until one frequency does this, or one instrument will do that. it is all of it. It's the space being held by these instruments that can maybe for some people open and activate our innate healing potential, which we all have. I mean, every day the body cures cancer. Cancerous cells develop, and every day, like some things like fasting can help, but it's like every day our body has the start of an illness, and it's also so brilliant at being able to heal itself that it will like stop that before we even know.
Right.
And it's like, and so I feel like sound for me, and the way I look at it is like that's what I'm doing. I am holding the space with these instruments and allowing people into this relaxed place. And from this relaxed place can come vulnerability. And you're only vulnerable if you're feeling safe. And if you're feeling safe, you can drop some of the stress, you can drop some of the cortisol, you can drop from the fight or flight that we're in always in the nervous system, you can drop into the rest and digest, the parasympathetic. And when you get into these deeper places, it's like the body can go, oh, I don't have anything to worry about right now. It can go out and start doing what it's best at, and that's keeping us
Healing
alive
yourself.
and keeping us healthy, right?
Hmm.
And so to me, that is kind of the science that I'm working with now. Do I have any double-blind controlled studies that prove this? No, but I have a lot over the past 10 years. I have a lot of clients that, have like anecdotally told me, hey, this was going on. I came and sat with you a few times. We had like a discussion about it. We held the intention of this thing getting better, and it got better. Now, was it just me? No, it probably had a lot to do with their exercise routine,
Their
what they
diet.
ate, and their diet, of course. But it's like, but that's like the way. It's like it's not always a pill.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a lifestyle change, and I feel like sound healing, going to a sound ceremony, visiting having a one-on-one with a really talented practitioner or somebody that's intuitive enough to kind of know the energy that's in the room and what's kind of needed in the moment
Hmm.
can be really helpful toward getting our body into that place.
Right.
But I always tell everybody, I think I even said it when you were there, it's kind of like if any healing happens here tonight, it was you,
Right.
not me, not the instruments, it's
Yep.
you. And in some ways, that's a very like liberating and validating and strengthening
It is.
way to look at it,
Yeah. I like the way you said that because it makes me feel empowered.
Yeah, empowering. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
What share
yeah.
some stories of some like transformations that you've seen after ceremonies. You don't have to say their names, but what are some really big ones that have happened after your ceremonies or as
Oh,
a result of your ceremonies?
yeah, yeah.
I'm sure you have a
I've
ton.
had, wow, I've had people that were dealing with kind of life altering grief from, people that have passed on sometimes suddenly, some very, very close family to people. I had one woman that, lost a child. And it wasn't nothing about the situation changed other than the ability to greet it from a place of acceptance, a place of forgiveness, of, in that case, herself, a place of more just, yeah, well, I mean, I said like acceptance. Sometimes that's all we can really do. It's
Right.
just accept what it is, but also, know that there can be like this depth to that, even in that process of the grief, where we can find our own strength and our own kind of our own power to continue forward and know that this life is still worth living no matter what, and and to continue forward in that. I've had people work with physical pain, like people after surgeries have come to me, and after I say a treatment, but a treatment or two of a sound ceremony,
Hmm.
they don't have to take their pain pills anymore. They can
Yo.
just kind of work with that, and we're getting and here we're getting very very where we're getting into a place where it's more about them and like and where they are, but also letting me know exactly where they are, you know uh, and like I said, these are all anecdotal, but I've had people that have self-compassion. I'm really big on that. I feel like our body is not going to do such a great job healing itself unless we love it completely and totally, even through all the mistakes that we've made, even through all of the challenges that we've had to go through. Unconditional self compassion is a beautiful medicine. And I'm always trying to, for all the people that I sit with, to bring that to the surface because I feel from that place, once again, it's like the unconditional self compassion. It's like we are feeling about ourselves and our body in such a way that it feels like it's worth it. If we get in this spiral around like, well, I'm not worthy, or I'm a bad person, or I'm always going to be like this, it's like every cell in your body can hear what you're saying,
Right.
and
Did you
it will
share that
connect.
story about the water at that sound healing event? About there was a study where some college, they took two glasses of water, and one of them they would every day just speak very nice and positive and compliment it and give it just good affirmations. The other one they would do the opposite and just ridicule it, insult it, and blah blah blah. They froze both glasses, and the positive water ice crystals were perfect and pristine and symmetrical and just perfect. The negative water was just disoriented and disarray. There was no real, and that's kind of sounds like what you're talking about.
Yeah,
But just
yeah. I
like
mean, well,
your body's listening to you, so what you kind of put into it, it's gonna respond mentally. I mean,
yeah, and to connect it, I mean, what's the percentage of water in our body? You
word.
know what I
It's
mean? Like, it's
yeah, it's
like
like 80% water.
yeah. I mean, to think about, in that way. I mean, we are kind of just, you know, bags of water walking around here. You know what
No
I mean?
kidding.
And
It's a
and so
fascinating
yeah,
study, though. It's a fascinating thing about just being positive or negative.
yeah, or yeah, right, and especially when aimed at ourselves, but even out into the world. I mean, I've found just personally on my journey, I've been working with this a lot around judgment,
Mm-hmm.
and like it's not like judgment is so hard because judgment and discernment get real tricky. Of like
Yes.
well, if I'm recognizing a pattern here, I'm trying to be discerning, but at what point does the judgment click over, and now I'm becoming like judgmental of someone and their story or their thoughts or their whatever. And it's kind of
Yeah.
like, so I've been working really hard recently around catching myself in that transition of like,
Mhm.
recognizing the pattern and being discerning. Okay. But like starting to have other opinions and thoughts that don't really help anybody or anything. It's just like some thoughts I feel like I need to have in the moment about a certain thing that has nothing to do with me sometimes.
I feel that
Judgment.
so much, Garth. I understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
go through that every
yeah,
day.
and it's hard. I mean, like for me, it's been like a very intense moment to realize, wow, how judgmental I
Mine, I
actually
usually
can be.
follow it up. It's for I learned a trick in AA that to when you find yourself doing bad behaviors, to pray to God to take it away or something. So I kind of do something like that just to keep myself accountable. When I notice myself judging, I like that you said discernment, because I'm going to start using that and really break down if I'm discerning or if I'm judging, because I really tend to judge people a lot. And when I get to the judgment part, I'm always like, okay, no, you're judging him for sure. You're wrong. Stop that immediately.
Hmm.
So that's
Hmm.
my practice. Like I catch my judgment, kind of punish myself a little bit, but maybe I should give myself a little grace after that too.
Yeah, well, and that's, I mean, and this is the crux, unconditional self-compassion, right?
Right.
And so like it's like as I'm coming back to it, I'll be like, oh, it's almost like when I was quitting smoking cigarettes. Congratulations on the AA, by the way.
Thank you.
But when I was quitting smoking cigarettes, I would have this thing where I was quit and then I would have a cigarette and then I would just be like, I'm a smoker again.
Yep.
But how I finally quit was if I screwed up and had a cigarette, the moment that cigarette went out, I had quit smoking again. And
Mhm.
it was kind of like this, I'm gonna make these mistakes. I'm gonna make these mistakes, but it doesn't mean that like my initial goal of not being a cigarette smoker is still 100%. I just made a mistake and I
Right.
can pick back right back up where I left off without immediately starting back up and telling myself the story about, well, now I guess I'm a cigarette smoker again because I did it. It's like,
Yep.
no, you just made a little mistake and don't do that anymore. And I did, and I had a few, but it took me a couple months to actually get out from under it, but I did, you know what I
Nice.
mean? And I think
Congratulations.
that, no, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
This was, I think, almost 15 years ago now,
Love
but
that. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah,
You can
yeah.
breathe now.
I can breathe and I can sing. That was the biggest thing, singing.
Yeah, your
You
song
know,
that
I
you
was
sang in
like,
there, it was a very beautiful song. That song's on Spotify, right? I'll plug all your
yeah, yeah.
stuff at the end of this in the show notes too.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, yeah. Thank you so
Yeah, yeah.
much. Yeah, I'm on Spotify. Mhm.
Hey, tell me about the ritual. What I'm wondering is, do you choreograph those things? Do you know what you're gonna play, or are you just kind of freestyling and then feeling the energy from the people that are in it?
It's a little bit of both. I have a general kind of
Flow?
I wouldn't say like yeah, like a flow, thank you, that I follow where like, I like to start with the didgeridoo just because it tends to shake things up
Yeah.
and that, and
Bold.
that kind of brings stuff to the surface
Mhm.
and then the rest of it is a lot more like for like soothing that and so people can have a chance to look at and work with whatever comes up in that initial kind of intense part, which is
Mhm.
also modeled a little bit after some of the stronger psychedelic ceremonies where in the very beginning it can be very, very intense and disorganized and overwhelming and just really, really challenging. And then as that like peak, so to speak, like levels off and you start getting into the more like calmer parts of it, you can look at the things that came up. We can look at the things that, are present now and work with them in a way. And so it's kind of borrowing even from that a little bit within the ceremony. So there's not like technically a flow, but of maybe the order of the instruments. But then what I play on each instrument is different every time. Like I don't actually have like unless it's like a song at the end that is a written song that
Right.
needs to be,
Yeah, you didn't freestyle that
yeah.
song. That was very well rehearsed.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
But it's like how I play the gong or what order I play the bowls in. It's like that's all kind of just in the moment of like trying to receive the energy of the room and go like well what's next. And that said, if I'm sitting there playing something and normally I go to this, but I get a really strong hit that I need to go to this,
Mhm.
I'll definitely follow that in the moment. Like I'm flexible around all of it.
Yeah.
I just and then when I do the private like one-on-one ceremonies where I can fit up to 6 people here in my home, and also private groups, it's like I'll talk to the people that are coming, especially for like the one-on-ones, where it's like, is there anything you liked a lot and you want me to do more? Is there
Mhm.
anything you didn't like at all and you don't want me to do?
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Kinda
saying? And
custom
just
make
kind
it.
of yeah, and they can kind of choose their own adventure around that. I'm happy to, sometimes I have people that are like, I'd like the didgeridoo for 40 minutes, and like my face feels like it's about to fall off from all the vibration, just
Yeah.
doing it for as long as I possibly can, 20, 25 minutes probably before it's just like, we need to take a little break and
Do you
change
just
it
blow
up.
in the
But
didgeridoo? How does that work? Is it like a trumpet?
it's almost like you're making a raspberry like
Okay. That makes sense.
but it's from like a really small part of the mouth here, and that
Mhm.
a big part of learning how to do it is getting these muscles to like clamp down right, so you can just do it right here, and then inside of that tube there's all these different little, it's not smooth, it's like it's like carved out with a tool, and so there are all these different little reflective surfaces, and that creates a back pressure of like, so when you're putting the sound in, the sound waves are bouncing off of themselves and actually coming back up and meeting your mouth as well, and that creates the back pressure, which
Oh,
allows you
okay,
to
that's
breathe
what's
quicker
vibrating your
through.
mouth the whole time then.
Right, right. And then it's basically like resonating the fundamental note of that didgeridoo, which mine is E flat. And then you can kind of go from there. You can move your tongue back and forth, and that will change the overtones. So you might hear like a wee, wee, like behind
Okay.
it, as I'm
Yeah.
like moving the tongue back and forth. And then you can also make the animal noises too, the like and
Yeah.
things like that.
Didgeridoo is a
Right.
cool ass
So
instrument.
and it's one of the most ancient. There are cave paintings. It depends on who you talk to. Once again, when I went through the history of it, it all gets kind of weird.
Yeah.
But there are cave paintings that were 20,000 years old in Aboriginal Australia that show people playing what they believe are didgeridoos, meaning that it could be 20,000 years old. There are other people that say they're only 1,500 years old. It's kind of like 1,500 is still pretty good. 20,000 feels like amazing, but there have been instruments that have found like even further back than that. Like the bird leg flute that they found that was like I think 60,000 years old, and it was like a little flute, it made out of a bird leg, so it was hollow. It only had two little holes in it, but when they found it, it was playable. When they blew into it, it actually could make you could hit,
That is so cool. A
and
60,000-year
so
old instrument.
and who knows, did they use it for sound healing? I don't know. I don't, I would like to think so, in my mind, which once again, don't, quote me at this, or any of your followers come after me for this, but it's like,
Light them up.
I know, okay, come. But I think that there's a little bit of when you're looking at the instruments like that, it's like maybe even some of those instruments predate language in some way, because I feel
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
because how long were we just grunting before we actually started to like change that into language? And
Hmm.
while we were just grunting, or making gesture,
Yeah,
right,
that's how it
exactly, or
all
making
started.
gesture, pointing to stuff, yes or
Or
no,
hitting things
how
like
long?
that's music to me. They're
Yeah,
probably to get someone's attention. They're hitting things like I
right,
think
right,
music has been used the way we use it right now since it was created. Like bird sounds, we've
probably.
been listening to those like meditation music. I'm sure for eons.
Right. They're whistling, whistling certain, and you go into these indigenous cultures and they can make all those bird sounds. They can
Yeah, I
mimic
bet.
exactly the bird sound, but they can do it over long distances and they use it as communication. So
Yeah,
it's like, did they use it for someone laying down for like to heal them? Probably not, but did they use it in their day-to-day life? Maybe even more than I'm able to use it? Probably so, So it's like,
for
so who's to
communication,
say
maybe.
what's,
There's a million different
yeah.
applications that you could use instrument
Yeah, and
for.
who's to say what's right or wrong? Like it's like there's no right or wrong way to receive sound or make sound or use sound. It can be what it needs to be. That's part of the beauty of it.
Yeah,
You know.
absolutely, absolutely. What's what do you think the difference is between meditation and a sound ceremony?
Well,
Is there a
I mean that's
difference?
pretty. Yeah, it's like I feel like I tell people, and I might have said it in the one you were in, that like if someone's never been there before, one of the things I encourage them is if you have a meditation practice, go ahead and drop into that,
Okay.
because the not thinking too much, just the letting thoughts rise and not attach to them and letting them fall away, like much like a meditation practice would teach anyone that's deep in the practice,
Mhm.
can be very helpful. Even the sound ceremony, even for like sounds that are like outside, people laughing or cars going by or sirens or things like that. It's kind of like it's going to be temporary, but let it rise and let it fall. Don't make any stories around it like, oh, this would be perfect except this sound right now. It's just like, let it come, let it go. And I've learned like meditation like that from meditation. My practice is a lot around that. I need to meditate more than I do. I wish I had a stronger meditation practice, which is just the fact that I need to sit down and give myself time to do it. But it's a very powerful thing to like kind of not conquer the mind, but to like sync up with the mind. I mean, a friend of mine who's deep into the Buddhist practice says, the mind is like this all the time, and meditation is not this. Meditation is letting your mind sync up to itself, to where it just feels like it's like this, because you're no longer like, you're not trying to be still and watching the mind do this. You're just dancing with the mind in such a synchronistic way that you stop thinking. Like the mind is like no longer, it can be chaos and it can be chaotic and chattery, and you're just there with it without worrying about it
I
too
was
much.
I was
So
about to say that my meditation practice it's built into every single day. And even if I meditate and I'm very stressed out or big things are happening, it still recenters me. It still that doesn't take me out of my day anymore. There's a time, especially because I was drinking, that something bad would happen that ruins everything and I can't do anything. I'm unproductive. I don't want to go to the thing. I don't want to call you back. I'm not doing anything. But now
right.
I think through that practice, it's just like, yeah, things are a little messed up right now, but you still have to go to work. You still have to go pick up your son. So you better get it together.
You know what they say? They say, even if you figure out all of the secrets of the universe, you still have to chop wood and you still have to carry water.
That's it.
It's like no matter what,
No kidding.
the deepest, if you figure it all out tomorrow, you still got to go to work. You
Yeah,
know what
that's
I mean? You still
unfortunate.
got to make this life.
Right. All right. Well, do you have any practical tips for listeners on getting into sound healing or yeah, any tips?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really big on that. I don't know if you remember me saying it, but I love to be what a lot of people have lovingly termed me as the musical Sherpa. So if anybody ever has any instruments that they might want to start bringing into their life, they can just reach out to me, and I'm happy to help facilitate them getting the instrument. And if they want a lesson or two, that's fine. But really, it's a lot of these instruments are very intuitive. A lot of these instruments are really just about sitting down and taking time to learn. And if anybody that wants to get into the sound healing, one of the first things I would say is don't start doing it as a way to make easy money, because it's not that. Like, I would say for me, I had been doing it now 10 years, but maybe I didn't start making like money that I would consider like where I could actually stop playing the bar
You could pay
gigs.
a thing with it.
Yeah, I could pay a thing. It was probably 6 years in,
Okay.
when I actually started. But then I was able to, like, I didn't have time on the weekends to do the bar gigs anymore, because I was doing this and traveling, and I got a bigger network of people, and so now I'm traveling to Texas and up to New York, and I'm it's kind of opening up in that way. And I have seen a lot of people like start the process and go like, I don't. And then go, maybe this isn't for me, or
Right.
and so that it'd be the two things. When you get started because you love it. Get started because you want to do sound baths just for yourself at your house, because you love the sound, you want it to help heal you. And then as that process continues, maybe that moves out into healing other people. But then on the flip side of that, as you're learning any of the instruments, don't get discouraged. Don't like, give yourself 15 minutes a day if you have to. Like, sometimes my yoga practice is putting out my mat and laying down on it for 10 minutes. I'm not stretching at all, but hey, I made it to the mat.
You
And
did the
that's kind
thing.
of like kind of the same thing with, like, with music. Is like, even if sometimes, when I was teaching my wife how to play guitar, now she's writing songs and singing. When we got together, her story was, I'm not a singer, I don't play music, I
Mm.
don't do all this stuff. And now,
Well,
and
she's a
but
songwriter now,
sometimes
legit.
now she's just a legit songwriter. I
That's
mean,
awesome.
all the songs, which I know you're gonna link them,
Mhm.
but all of the songs that I've put out on Spotify, she's written the lyrics for.
Really?
And like, and that's the way that we
That is
kind of are
beautiful. That's
always,
a good
yeah, we're
symbiotic
always
relationship. That's
yeah,
beautiful.
we're always birthing a new song. A lot of our trips to Peru, a song always comes out of it. A lot of our time is spent, um, working with writing songs, and working with, trying to capture feelings in word form,
Nice.
and be able to let other people feel those things that we're feeling, in the moment that we created the song.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, but those are the main things. Do it for yourself first. Do it for yourself if you feel called to do it. I mean, I'm, once again, you can put in my information. I'm available to talk to anybody about it. It's a very powerful practice. I use it for myself all the time. I play these instruments for myself all the time. That's how I got good at them. Sitting with something for 1,000 hours, 2,000 hours, 10,000 hours, if you wanted to quote unquote master it, right? But I think you can get very proficient on an instrument well before 10,000 hours.
Oh yeah.
Really, anything probably.
Yeah.
But it's like, but it's that showing up for yourself and for it every day. And
Mhm.
then don't get discouraged if it feels like it's going slow. If you're learning something, it's just like, man, or you see someone that's really good at it, it's like, oh, I'll never be able to do that. Don't do that. Comes back to the self-compassion thing, right? It's
Mhm.
like, I'm doing a good job, I'm showing up for this every day, and it's going to be exactly what it needs to be, exactly when it needs to be it.
I love how I can just feel and see the passion in your eyes as you speak about this stuff. That is wonderful to see. That's the reason I have this podcast. I
Mm.
love that. I love people that are passionate about stuff that they're doing.
Yeah.
But,
Yes, I feel like the luckiest man alive that I get to do this. And yeah, and that I meet people like you that care and want to talk about it with me, because I love talking about it,
yeah,
obviously.
right. Yeah, I could see it. That's why I even said that. And my experience through that, it was very meditative, and I tried very hard to not open my eyes. And what I really liked, you did it a few times. You went around the room, and like the sounds would get close and then far away, and I just really like it would make me. I was noticing how I was thinking. I was like, now I'm curious. Like, where are you going? And like, then you're right here above me. I'm like, oh crap. It
Hmm.
was a really cool experience. Like, I went through a lot mentally. Not bad, not good, just different. Different sounds. I'm taking it in. I really soaked it up, and I really enjoyed it, Garth.
Hmm.
Thank
And
you.
there, one thing I didn't mention earlier about like that kind of triangulation on where the sound is in the room. A lot of times, we're in fluorescent light lit rooms that we're not outside, but that part of us that can track the bird song, could track the animal that we were hunting, like that part of us doesn't get a lot of a workout nowadays, just the way that we live life.
Right.
And sometimes in a sound ceremony, following and tracking like that, that's actually working out that muscle,
Absolutely. I never thought of it like
and
that, but
it's,
you're right.
and so like that's just one thing that I forgot to mention earlier when you were talking about the science of it. That is one thing that I feel, is a kind of a tangible physical thing that it helps with. Now, what do we do with that? I don't know, maybe you're a better hunter, maybe you're just a little more in the present moment, which I feel like a lot of this work is really bringing people to the present moment and finding love for themselves when they get there,
Right.
so.
Well, that's beautiful. Tell everyone what services you offer and where you serve your customers at, or your clients.
So I'm all around the Triangle, Apex, Raleigh. I'm based out of Pittsburgh. That's where my home sanctuary is.
Okay.
I go up to Durham sometimes. I go up to North Raleigh, up into Wake Forest. And down into Fuquay Arena sometimes. And these are for like the group sessions. And then a lot of people come out to my house in Pittsburgh and we can do, private sessions, which tend to be a lot deeper. I know
Yeah.
the one
No, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that later. I do want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's mostly just within an hour of Pittsburgh. So, Southern Pines, Durham, Wake Forest, all of Raleigh, all of Wake Forest, all of Wake County, out into Hillsborough and Orange County
Right.
too. So
Are you on any social media for or with this
yeah,
in particular?
yeah, so you can it's really just, kind of Facebook switched over into the professional mode and I didn't realize it. So I just use that. It's just my name, Garth Robertson.
Perfect.
On Instagram it's garth.sound. And I have them linked, so all my stuff is on both of those. When I was in the jungle in September, I was told that I am to get off of TikTok. And so I do have a TikTok, but I have not opened it since I got back on September 29th. And that is just, the scrolling, the dopamine hits they just were coming and coming and coming. And I was realizing that I was getting a little a day, like hours would go by, and I was just like, what am I doing? And so I got back into reading, I got back into audiobooks and just sitting in a dark room and not looking at anything, but just receiving, like maybe listening to a podcast like this,
Mm-hmm.
or, or listening to an audiobook and really just relaxing that part. And I found that, I can now, those same dopamine hits are coming from seeing, a squirrel playing outside or watching
Yep.
a bird feed on my bird feeder, and just like I'm noticing that like these dopamine hits are coming from these more simple, beautiful things.
Mm-hmm.
And so TikTok, obviously you can scroll on all the social media platforms now, but that one was something that I gave up. But maybe I'll come back to it because it is beautiful. I mean, it is a beautiful app. It does have a lot of beautiful things. It was just kind of a trap for me. And I think that's it as far as that. I do have a newsletter. I have a website, which you'll probably link.
Yep.
And yeah, and a newsletter that people can sign up for that I release once a month, just saying everywhere that I'll be.
Okay.
And stuff like that.
Well,
Yeah.
awesome. Garth.
Thanks so much for the beautiful interview. And like I said, thanks so much for having me on and, letting me share my story a little bit.
Garth, you're a very beautiful person, and I really appreciate meeting you. I'm grateful to everyone that I meet with my new sober brain, because it just means so much more to me when I come across interesting people or creative people in the world, and I really appreciate it. I loved your sound healing ceremony. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I give you a
Thank you.
5-star review. All right, everyone, call Garth.
Please do,
I
and
will.
thank you so much. And yeah, it's beautiful to hear that you're doing well on your journey too. I wasn't aware of that, and I'm always in the rooting for the people that are in this journey for self improvement and in process with their own story towards self, toward wholeness. That's
Yeah.
what we're all going for, is
That's it.
wholeness. So yeah, great meeting you, brother.
Great meeting you. Well, let's stay in touch, and you should come do some open mics with us. Well, hit subscribe. Tune into the Almost Above Average podcast.